Okay, hello. So in this module, we will be talking about oxidative phosphorylation, no? So if you can remember, again, this is the review of metabolism. This is summary of carbohydrate metabolism, the one that is coded in color green. So kung makikita nyo dito, tapos na-discuss na natin yung glycolysis, gluconeogenesis, glycogenolysis, and so on. And we also talked about citric acid cycle. So, under aerobic conditions, kaya nangyayari yung citric acid cycle. And then, yung byproducts ng ating citric acid cycle, it will go to electron transport chain. So, ito din yon. So, ang glycolysis natin is the breakdown of glucose to 2-pyruvate. So, ang glucose natin is a 6-carbon atom. So, I will put here a reference lang, no? Para makita nating lahat. So, 6 carbon. Okay, so glucose is a 6-carbon atom. So, ito ay mabe-breakdown into 2. So, magiging dalawa siya. So, bali meron tayong dalawang pyruvate. Okay, dalawang pyruvate. Okay, sorry. Okay. That being said, ang ating pyruvate po natin dito is dalawa. So, kaya meron tayong dalawang ATP, no? And from pyruvate, it will go through oxidation process. Ibig sabihin, there is a presence of oxygen. So, under aerobic conditions, nandito na yung ating acetyl-CoA, which is a linking reaction or parang initiator siya. So, kung wala si acetyl-CoA, Krebs cycle would not happen. So, si Krebs cycle, dalawang beses siya magta-turn. So, there will be 2 turns of Krebs cycle. Bakit? Kasi meron tayong dalawang pyruvate na produce from 1 glucose molecule. So, kaya dalawang beses siya maiikot, no? And it will produce 2 ATPs. And yung byproducts from Krebs cycle, o pwede rin nating tawagin siya as citric acid cycle or tricarboxylic acid cycle. Yan, no? So, it will go to electron transport chain, which is yung ating tinatawag na chemiosmosis. So, si electron transport chain, it will produce 32 ATPs. So, in summary, yung buong cycle po ng ating glucose breakdown, it will produce automatically 36 ATPs. So, lagyan natin 36. Total is 36 ATPs. Okay, total is 36 ATPs. So, oxidative phosphorylation, it is the occurrence which is under aerobic conditions right after citric acid cycle. So, pagkatapos ng ating CAC. So, remember, ang products ng ating citric acid cycle, product of 1 turn. So, again, sinabi ko nga kanina, dalawang beses siya iikot kasi dalawang pyruvate yung ating maproproduce. So, in 1 glucose, dalawang turn yan. Okay? So, pag isang turn lang, ibig sabihin, isang pyruvate pa lang yung nagagamit natin, it will produce 3 NADH, 1 FADH2, 1 GTP or ATP, and 2 carbon dioxide. So, kung makikita nyo, ito pong may mga yellow. So, lahat ng yung yellow na yan, yan yung pupunta sa ating electron transport chain. So, given na we have one glucose molecule, so after 2 turns, we will produce 6 NADH, 2 FADH2, and 2 ATP. Okay, so oxidative phosphorylation is consists of 2 processes, no? It is composed of 2 processes. Itong Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, and 4, this is what I call, what we can call electron transport chain. And then, yung part 2 nun, after this, ETC, it will go through chemiosmosis, no? Yung triangle. So, ang cells natin, it goes through cellular respiration, no? Cells use oxygen to produce water, carbon dioxide, and energy. Yung energy na yon in the form of ATP. So, the question is, saan nanggagaling yung oxygen? Saan kinukuha ng cells? Of course, nakukuha yan from the atmosphere, from the air that we breathe, no? That is produced by the plants. So, electron transport chain or ETC is an important step to produce ATPs. To produce ATPs or energy for different cellular functions. So, going back, napakadaming cellular functions ang cells, no? Maraming kaya silang gawin. So, for example na lang, ang katawan natin is, remember, it is made up of trillions of cells. And yung iba't ibang cells, pag pinagsama-sama sila, same function, magiging tissue na siya. And then, later on, yung tissue na yon makakabuo ng system. So, for example, meron tayong respiratory system, cardiovascular system, and so on. In this slide, we will talk about the site kung saan nangyayari yung ating oxidative phosphorylation o yung ating electron transport chain and chemiosmosis. So, the site is the mitochondria. So, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell because it produces the energy needed by the cell for it to function. So, we have 3 parts of mitochondria which are very important in this topic. We have the inner membrane. This is where the 4 complexes are located. So, ito po iyon, the inner membrane. And we have the intermembrane space which is right above our inner membrane. And we have the matrix which is under ng ating inner membrane. So, para ko siyang i-compare sa isang swimming pool, no? So, in a swimming pool, we have the water. So, ito yon yung matrix. And then, yung haligi ng pool ay yung inner membrane. And, of course, yung sa labas ay ang intermembrane space. So, characteristics ng ating site. Si inner membrane, this is where the 4 complexes are located. And it is composed of a phospholipid bilayer. So, anong itsura ng phospholipid bilayer, no? So, ipapakita ko lang sa inyo. Phospholipid bilayer. So, kaya siya naging bilayer. We have a hydrophobic head and we have a hydrophilic tail. So, para silang parang magkadikit sila pero in an opposite direction. So next is the intermembrane space. It is above the inner membrane. And ang conditions dito is it is low in pH. So pag mababa ang pH natin from 0 to 6.9, ibig sabihin nito acidic yung environment natin. And mataas ang concentration of hydrogen. So high concentration of hydrogen ions. So, bakit mataas ang concentration niya? It is due to pumping of hydrogen ions from complexes para sa protons. So, yung red arrows that is represented here are the red arrows pumping hydrogens up, pataas sa intermembrane space. And, matrix naman natin, it is the one below the inner membrane. So, dito. And, pH here is high. So, ibig sabihin, much more basic siya. And, there is a low concentration of hydrogen ions. So, low to high concentration nga ang gusto ng hydrogen ions natin. Kaya, mas karamihan nasa intermembrane space. Okay, so now let's look at the steps ng ating ETC or electron transport chain. So first of all, syempre kailangan alam natin what are the byproducts from reactions before the ETC. So yung reactions before the ETC are glycolysis, we have the oxidation of pyruvates, and of course, yung ating citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle. So, from glycolysis, ang product niya, we have 2 NADH plus H+. We have, from oxidation of 2 pyruvates, so, ibig sabihin, dalawang pyruvates, 2 NADH plus H+. And, from 2 turns of Krebs cycle, dalawang ikot, we have 6 NADH plus H. So, again, and ang total nitong lahat ng NADH natin plus hydrogen ion, we have a total of 10 NADH, no? And ang FADH2 natin from 2 turns of Krebs cycle, dalawa yun na produce. Next, we have to know what are the protein complexes. So, sa anong nangyayari dito? So, we have complex 1, complex 2, complex 3, and complex 4. So, they exist in descending order of energy, meaning there is more energy in complex 1 than complex 4. So, nagiging drop-off point of electron and proton cargo stages. So, as we go down the stairs, mas papaunti yung electrons natin kasi ginagamit na siya nung process sa electron transport chain. So, as you can see, ang balls natin dito or yung yellow balls here, yun ang representation ng ating electrons. And the staircase or yung drum natin na color blue here are the complexes. So, meron tayong 4. And the workers itself are the helper molecules o yung mga pumipick up ng electrons. So, I have notes here that just imagine, no, we have literally multiple workers. Itong sila. Dropping off the balls o yung tinatawag nating electrons in staircase o yung kada complex, and as the balls move down the stairs or as the electrons move down each complex, there are some workers that are on standby per complex to come and pick it up. Thus, there are less electrons in complex 4. Okay, so, ngayon, titingnan naman natin yung kada complex, ano nangyayari doon. So, complex 1, it is where most of the electrons are dropped off in this complex due to NADH from citric acid cycle. So, as you can see, color-coded yung ating PowerPoint kasi mapapakita dito on where it is located or where the reactions are happening. So, for yellow, nangyayari siya sa intermembrane space. For orange, nangyayari siya sa matrix. So, yung NADH natin, it will be oxidized to NAD+. So, that being said, being oxidized, hydrogen ion or yung ating proton will be separated from NADH. So, ito din yon. NADH will be separated. So, hydrogen ion or proton will move upwards towards the intermembrane space, H+, is very attracted due to low pH concentration. So, yung mawawalang hydrogen ion from NADH, it will move upwards towards the intermembrane space. So, yung yellow po natin dito, no, kung makikita nyo, all the yellow arrows are, it's the one that represents the flow of electrons. So, yung electrons natin, diretso sa complex 1, no? Ang important process with complex 1 that you have to remember is the oxidation of our NADH to NAD+. And we have an enzyme that is involved here, which is ubiquinone oxidoreductase. So, if you remember, enzyme is the one that catalyzes the reactions o yung nagpapabilis sa ating reactions. So, again, the movement is from matrix to inner membrane to intermembrane space. So, yun yung movement ng ating hydrogen ions. Okay, complex number 2. Si complex number 2, kung makikita nyo po dito, mapapansin nyo, so there is no arrows going up. Ibig sabihin, walang hydrogen ions na umaakyat sa ating intermembrane space. However, yung ating FADH2, which is from the Krebs cycle, so it does not pass through complex 1. So, it is a direct receive of FADH2 from the matrix. Ang ating ubiquinone or ubiquinone Q, ito yung Q, no? It is the enzyme that connects complex 1 and complex 2. So, makikita nyo, yung electrons, it will pass through the enzyme Q. And itong ating FADH2 and Q will form a small complex that delivers electrons directly to electron transport chain. So, kung makikita nyo, yung arrow natin, hindi lang galing sa complex 1 na dadaan sa Q. Meron din po tayong arrow from matrix. Ibig sabihin, yung electrons natin, meron din papunta sa Q. So, basically, sa ating complex 2, marami pa ring electrons na pumapasok. And Q is the connector para makuha yung mga yon. So, in here, what's important is that alam natin na meron tayong dalawang hydrogens na maseseparate sa ating FADH2. And electrons will pass through ubiquinone or yung ating Q na galing sa complex 1 and also sa complex 2. Okay? So, next is complex number 3. Si complex number 3 here, as you can see in the picture, it accepts the electrons coming from ubiquinol, coming from complex 2, and transfer them into another electron carrier called cytochrome C. So, from Q, dadaan siya sa complex 3, and then si complex 3, ita-transfer niya kay cytochrome C. So, cytochrome C will now then transport the electrons to complex 4. So, yung transfer na to, it will cause 4 protons to move into the matrix. So, kung makikita nyo, there will be a flow down. So, yung electrons natin, at the same time, pababa din siya dito, no? Yung yellow arrow natin. And meron ding 4 na protons na magmo-move sa matrix. So, yung 4 na protons na yon, galing yon sa ating FADH2 na na-oxidize sa ating complex 2. Okay, in complex 3, ang movement niya is acceptance of complex 3 electrons from ubiquinone and then to cytochrome C carrier and then to complex 4, lahat ng yon sa ating inner membrane, and then the 4 protons going to the matrix along with the electrons na galing sa ating cytochrome C. Okay, so in complex number 4, what's important here is that yung 4 na protons na nanggaling sa ating cytochrome C from the previous complex, gagamitin niya yung 2 hydrogen doon. So, yung 4 na protons, we consider it as hydrogen ion, ano? So, yung 2 hydrogen doon, magiging water, no? Pag nakipag-react siya with oxygen, magiging water. And yung the remaining 2 na protons o ating hydrogen ion, it will be pumped up galing sa matrix papunta sa intermembrane space. So again, yung 2 hydrogen gagamitin para makabuo ng water, and then the remaining 2 hydrogens will be pumped up to intermembrane space. Okay? So, yun yung summary ng ating electron transport chain, as you can see. So, ito dun yun. So, you may use this picture to summarize everything that is going on from complex 1 to complex 4. So, as a review, sa ating complex 1, si NADH will be oxidized. Ibig sabihin, may hydrogen ion na mawawala and it will transform into NAD+. So, yung hydrogen ion po niya, it will be pumped up from matrix papunta sa ating complex and then into the intermembrane space. However, ang ating electrons naman, it will flow through the complex 1 sa ating inner membrane, yung yellow na arrow. Ito transfer niya sa ating ubiquinone, which is another carrier natin here. Okay? So, in complex 2, yung FADH2 natin, it will be oxidized para maging FAD. So, meron tayong 2 hydrogen na matitira. No? And then, yung electrons niya, it will go through the ubiquinone. From ubiquinone, ita-transfer niya sa ating complex number 3, ang ating, tawag dito, ang ating electrons. And then, sa complex 3, meron tayong hydrogen ions na mapapump up. No, galing yan sa FADH2 or from other reactions na nandito sa matrix. And then, yung electrons natin, dadaan siya kay cytochrome C, another carrier. Si cytochrome C, dadaan sa complex number 4, yung electrons, ida-drop off niya dito sa ating matrix. So, ito naman, yung meron tayong 4 na protons na maproproduce, which yung 2 doon will be used to make water, and yung another 2 will be pumped up sa ating intermembrane space. So, yun na nangyayari sa ating electron transport chain. Now, we will discuss what is going on sa ating chemiosmosis. So, ito po yun, yung process ng chemiosmosis. So, ang key term natin, chemiosmosis, it is the movement of substance from high to low concentration. So, kung makikita nyo kanina, no, yung mga arrow natin na green here, pinapump niya lahat ng hydrogen ion sa ating intermembrane space. So, from high concentration, papunta sa lower concentration dito sa ating matrix. Pero, dadaan muna siya sa ating tinatawag na ATP synthase. Okay? So, ito yung ATP synthase natin. So, hydrogen ions flow down the gradient from high concentration to low concentration. And hydrogen ions pass through the enzyme called ATP synthase. So, yung purple na yan. Sorry. And just imagine natin yung ATP synthase natin as turbine. So, yung turbine, di ba, umiikot siya. So, in a hydroelectric power plant. So, instead of water na nagpapaikot sa ating turbine, it is turned by the flow of hydrogen ions. Kasi positive ion siya. So, kaya niyang i-move yung ating ATP synthase moving down into the electrochemical gradient. So, as it turns, habang umiikot po ito, it catalyzes the addition of phosphate sa ating ADP. So, ito yon. So, ADP means adenosine diphosphate. So, ibig sabihin, dalawa yung phosphate niya. Pag dinagdagan mo ng isa, it will become ATP. So, which is adenosine triphosphate. So, tatlo na yung kanyang phosphate. So, ATP is the form of energy na magagamit ng cell for different functions. Okay? So, again, as a review, hydrogen ions natin will move to a lower gradient through ATP synthase. And as it turns, magkakaroon ng addition of phosphate group, adenosine diphosphate, to produce ATP. So, that's the whole process of oxidative phosphorylation. I hope you will remember this. And this is also included in our exam. And you will also have a quiz in this to be announced. So, I have references here. You can check online. So, ito yung mga YouTube videos that you can check. Itong mga to are animated, no? So, mas ma-appreciate nyo yung electron transport chain and the ATP synthase through these videos. Kasi, makikita nyo kung paano gumagalaw inside the cell ang ating electrons. So, if you have questions, please do let me know and just message me. If you have corrections, please do so as well. So, thank you.